Welcome, everybody, to this college football podcast where we are not here to go to school.
To play school.
I was going through all the stuff, Mo. All of it. All the things we're not here for. We're not here to go to school. We're not here to talk about school. We're not here to play school. We're here to talk football. You gotta let me go. I had a thing going.
My bad.
I know what the name of the show is. Give me some.
I don't know. It threw me off.
It's okay. We got to remember why we're here, Mo. The man's in the news today too.
I mean, I don't know if he's in the news or if he's in the news for us.
Pablo Torre finds out. That's a very popular.
That's true. That's true. Pablo Torre is popping off right now. That's true.
He had Cardale on there today. We're not here. We ain't come to play school. Classes are pointless. Mo, how do you feel about that as a grad student right now? Our class is pointless?
My one class feels pretty pointless. I'm not going to lie.
And then we just got to give you the vision. Look at this, man.
Bills legend.
Someone tweeted today.
Not one of the Bills legends over in London this week. That's my question.
Somebody tweeted today about Cardale and said that that's the worst mistake of Sean McDermott's career is cutting Cardale and keeping Nathan Peterman. And I honestly have to agree. Cardale could not have been worse. He could not have been worse than Nathan Peterman, man. He could not have been worse.
I mean, I think with that, we just get Josh Allen a start right away his rookie year. I don't think we never have to go through the Nathan Peterman experiment at all. Yeah. That'd be nice. Well,
it would have been better for all of us if we didn't have to go with the Nathan Peterman experience.
Yeah, twice.
We're here for one reason today. It's Red River. I didn't put shootout. I'm going rivalry still. I don't know what it's actually called.
I think it's back to showdown. I believe.
Showdown's the worst one that they've had. Honestly, showdown feels like a showdown when they call a game a showdown. It feels like I'm watching like Marshall versus UTEP in like the Fort Worth showdown.
Hey, well, Colorado State is the Rocky Mountain Showdown, and that was a great game.
That's a stupid name.
Well, it's just it's back to showdown right now. That's what it says.
Okay. What about
shootout in our hearts, and for the purpose of the show, it's shootout.
Wouldn't it be better if it was like the Rocky Mountain Classic or something?
I think that already exists.
What is that?
I don't know. No, there's no Rumble in the Rockies, which is already taken. That's a good one.
That is a good one.
But I think that's Utah and Colorado. I think is Rumble in the Rockies.
Okay. Well, how about Red River?
It's shootout. Just stick with shootout. That's all we need.
Red River. I got nothing else. Yeah. How do you feel about this game? We're a couple days out. It's going to be an electric atmosphere. It's at the Cotton Bowl.
It's always an electric atmosphere at the Cotton Bowl. It's one of the true neutral site games that we get in college football every single year. It's not the All-State Safe Hands Classic, that two random teams are in, or the whatever.
Marshall and UTEP. Need to get them together. Marshall UTEP. I need that matchup in my life.
It's one of the actual the true neutral site games that we get in college football, and it's such a special event. And it's been held at the Cotton Bowl since 1929, and it's just an insane long time. It was originally when I was writing about it this week, and I was looking stuff up, that it was held at the state fairgrounds. It was a 10-year lease. That was all the original contract was supposed to be. And now here we are, what is that, 84 years later, that they're still holding the game there. And it's pretty awesome. You're going to see the crowd. It's going to be a split. What was Oklahoma Tech? Are they crimson?
Right down the middle. I don't know. Is it crimson? No, because Alabama's crimson. I wouldn't.
Yeah, they're not scarlet either. That's Ohio State. Whatever red that Oklahoma is going to be half, and then the other half is burnt orange. And it's just a beautiful sight. This year, though, it's not on Fox. We don't get Gus Johnson, and he's been calling it the last 5 years at least. And that's tough. No Gus.
It does say our primary color is Oklahoma crimson.
Oh, so you see, they have to have the distinction because the crimson's
it's
locked
not
out.
Alabama crimson. This is Oklahoma crimson. So
But no, like I said, I mean, this is the
You're more
100th
broken up about Gus Johnson than I am. Listen, I'm used to the ABC days of the. I'm used to it being Brent Musburger or Chris Fowler or
It's
Sean McDonough or something like that.
it's been the last like 5-6 years. It's such a chaotic game that Gus Johnson was just made to call Big 12 football, and especially the Red River.
He was. Well, Chris Fowler and Herb Street, I believe, will be there. So I think that we're getting.
I'm looking at 506 Sports right now.
I don't. To talk about the actual game,
it is Fowler and Herb Street. It is Fowler and Herb Street.
To talk about the actual game, I don't think Oklahoma can stay on the field. I don't know if anybody in the Big 12 can stay on the field with Texas, and I expect that to happen again. I think that this is going to be a day where they're only 5.5-point favorites. Like, I would hammer that. I think that they're going to win by 2 touchdowns. I feel like it's going to be like 38-24 and 24 for this Oklahoma team. I mean, I just don't know if I don't. They scored 50 last week against Iowa State, right?
Mm-hmm.
But the 28 against SMU, the game at Cincinnati where the offense looked really, it was a struggle for everybody in that game. I just feel like Texas is clicking on all cylinders, and I don't think Oklahoma has I don't think Oklahoma can keep up from what we've seen these first 5 games. I don't think anybody can really keep up with Texas right now. So
it'll be interesting because, I mean, a lot of like Oklahoma right now, 3rd best offense points per game in the country, but a lot of that is based off of early season squashing, nobody opponents. They put up 70 on Arkansas State week 1, and that's helping their average a lot. But you're right, against Cincinnati, against Tulsa, and then even, I mean, they came out firing against Iowa State, but Iowa State was able to keep that game close for the first, quarter and a half before getting blown out completely. They definitely have not played a defense as good as Texas is yet. And so that's going to be a big test. And Dylan Gabriel is an experienced quarterback. I mean, he's been playing a long time. His first Red River, last year he missed it because of injury. And when Oklahoma got embarrassed and they got shut out last year. So it'll be interesting to see how he responds to that environment. It's definitely the biggest game he's ever played in his career coming from UCF. He's doing pretty good right now. 4th most pass touchdowns in college football. And 7th most passing yards. So if he can just get, going the way he has been, it's going to be, I mean, it's a tough defense, but he, maybe he'll find some holes in it. I don't know if it's going to be a 2-score win for Texas. There's a reason that's 5.5. I believe in Texas' defense, and their offense is great, but their offense has a tendency to start slow in these games. And if they're starting slow, I believe they can play catch up because their defense can steal a couple possessions for them. But if they, that means that game's going to be a lot closer.
I don't see it being close.
I just think the offense can't start slow. And we've seen this offense start slow a lot this year.
I think they could score 28 points in a quarter on this team. And so
they've done it before.
That's what I mean.
They've done it before.
That's what I mean. They've done it to this team before. Like, I just feel like they're like, even if they start, I just think there's going to be a 15-minute stretch, a 20-minute stretch in this game where they get overwhelmed. You know what I mean? Or Oklahoma gets overwhelmed, by Texas. And it's just going to be too much. I think that's the difference in the game.
I would still pick Texas to win, 10 out of 10 times.
Do you think they cover?
I think they cover. I think it's like a 1-score game. I think it's like a 7-point win. I don't think they're winning by 14, like you're saying. I think this game, it could be like 45-38 or something. Maybe it wouldn't be that high scoring, but Red River usually is a fairly high scoring game. I definitely I see it as a touchdown win, not a field goal. It's gonna be at least a touchdown, but it's not gonna be more than that.
All right,
I would take an alternate spread of like 6.5.
Okay. All right. Touchdown. It's going to be a great game right at noon there in the Cotton Bowl, like you said. So we'll move on to some other games, a couple other big games this week. Maryland traveling to Ohio State. Can they do it? Can Maryland pull off the upset? This is definitely I don't know what to say about this Ohio State team, but it definitely looks the most gettable for an upset than we've seen in the last couple of years. And this is also Ohio State team, even in its they're on such a great run right now, obviously dating back like the last 10 years or whatever. And they still lose these games sometimes to the random Big Ten team. It happens to Purdue a lot, like a lot of losses to Purdue. But Maryland, this is a good Maryland team to start the year. They're feeling good about it. It's gonna be interesting, I think. And I'm also just want to see Kyle McCord in this matchup where they're the favorites. They're at home, big game. Like it's not a big game like Notre Dame where they're not, national TV, right? Because it's big noon, right? I'm pretty sure. So it's on across from
it's big noon. Yeah, it's
from
big noon.
Texas and Oklahoma. So like the eyes in the world are going to be on Dallas. So it's not the biggest stage, but that's when I feel like noon start, Ohio Stadium, Maryland comes out high flying offense and scores or something. I don't know. This game it's interesting on paper, at least, when you've seen how the Buckeyes have kind of started some of these games against lesser opponents this year.
It is. And I mean, even to say Maryland is a lesser opponent, it's true. You look, they are. They're still 5-0 this year.
They're 20-point underdogs.
Yeah, 20-point underdogs, which it seems high because this Maryland team can score. 5-0 this year, 2-0 in the conference already, and they're right outside in others receiving votes. I think they're 26th. They're coming in for others receiving votes, so they're right outside the top 25. Ohio State's only had one Big Ten game so far this year, and it was super close. It was at Indiana. It wasn't a home game, but it was a very close game. So this is, it's a big test for Kyle McCord in his first home start for the Big Ten. We've seen them start out slow. They need to still figure out against better defenses how to get Marvin Harrison Jr. involved. He is not looking at all like the wide receiver people were predicting he's going to be. He's not looking like he's a Heisman candidate like people thought he was going to be. Obviously, when he does get the ball, he's electric, but it's been against Youngstown State. Yeah. Can they get him the ball in a Big Ten game actually and see him do something? That's the biggest question to me, honestly. I think they'll beat Maryland decently, like fairly handily, because even if McCord isn't on, that defense is still solid, and they have Trayvon Henderson to rely on, and obviously his favorite target seems to be Cade Stover, that tight end. So they'll be set, but that's what I'm interested to see is if Ryan Day can find some scheme for Marvin Harrison Jr. that he can actually kind of show out against a Big Ten team. Because right now he's getting shut down.
Yeah. We shall see. It might be the quarterback as much as anything else too, though. Like
it might be.
Like I'm not sold that it's on Kyle McCord, and if they have a bad game, if they play like they've played the first 5 games or 4 games they've had this year, again in Big Ten play the whole way through, they're going to get caught by somebody because it's just been too inconsistent. Sure. And so Maryland, go ahead.
No, you're right. It's to his brother, Talia is playing great. Right now he's got the stats to back up as one of the top quarterbacks in the Big Ten right now, and he kind of has done that for the last couple of years. He doesn't always perform in these big games, but he has the stats coming into this game to show out. For sure.
Yeah, I think. Do you think that Maryland pulls the upset?
No, I don't think they pull the upset because I think Ohio State's defense is still just too solid all around that they're gonna get to them. But 20 seems a lot. The way this Ohio State team has looked this year, I'm surprised that they're 20-point favorites. I think
it's kind of wild.
Yeah, 10 maybe. 10 to like 11. It's probably because it's at home is a big part of it. I wonder what the spread would look like if they were at College Park. But
I'm telling you, man, these Ohio State fans, they don't care about noon starts against Maryland. So it's not going to they could be sleepy. Like it could be like a very sleepy start. And this is a team that hasn't proven that they can survive sleepy starts against good teams. And maybe like you're saying, Maryland's 5-0. They might just be a good team this year. And this could be their biggest win. So who knows? Like it's interesting, and it's going to be like happening next to Red River. So it's going to be like, oh man, is Ohio State down like 14-0 to Maryland or something? And you're like, oh, okay.
Yeah. You've been at one of those noon kickoffs before.
Yes.
At Ohio Stadium, and you've seen that.
I've been to 2, and they were both losses. Yeah. So
I'm just saying you've seen that you know firsthand that crowd doesn't get up all the time.
Well, and that was and the last one was against Oregon, which was the biggest game of the season. Like, Oregon, future Big Ten matchup, who would have thought? But at the
That crowd,
time.
yeah, that crowd can be weird sometimes.
Yeah.
Sometimes they don't get up for those noon. I mean, that's a lot of places. I mean, those big stadiums, those college kids, you know, they're not always fired up for those noon starts. Sometimes those night games is where they're shining. But
Gotta be more.
I would expect
just wake up a little earlier. That's all I'm saying.
I would expect a big run game from Travion Henderson is what I would think.
All right, we shall see. Let's go to Maryland. Let's go to Alabama and Texas A&M. I mean, can A&M, the talent's always there. They've beaten Bama in these spots before, but Alabama looked like they kind of figured something out last week. So what's your vibe on this game?
I mean, I think Bama wins. It's close game. They're only 1 point favorites at Texas A&M, which makes sense. The way A&M doesn't look bad. I mean, they got beat up pretty bad by Miami at Miami earlier this year, but other than that, they've looked solid. And like you said, they are a well-recruited team. Jimbo's really great at recruiting. Top 15 the last 3 years, and which includes a number 1 class. Can they put it all together? Their defense is legit. They're tied for the second most sacks. And what I noticed is that Jalen Milroe has taken 15 sacks already this year. If they can just get to him and put pressure on him, and we know he kind of likes to turn the ball over, so that's going to be the big deciding factor of this game. Jalen Milroe last year, his first career start was home against Texas A&M when Bryce Young was out for injury, and he had 3 turnovers, a pick and 2 fumbles. This year he's already got 3 interceptions. So if they can get him and get pressure on him, either getting sacks or forcing him to put the ball up in bad spots, I wouldn't be surprised if this game is just really, really sloppy. And it's going to be it's going to be a 1-score game again. That -1, I 100%. I would take A&M. If they win or lose, it's going to be like a field goal.
All right. Well, I think that I think it's going to be. I just think Bama's going to handle business here. The only exposure I've had to A&M this year, though, has been that Miami game where they just looked atrocious, and I have not seen much of any of them. So I'm leaning on you're there. So I'm with you with what you're looking at for the game. Let's go to the other game in the SEC though, because this one is. I'm really interested in what you think is going to happen here because I think Georgia has looked pretty average, and I don't understand that. This is my biggest pet peeve with preseason polls to begin with because they have not been the number 1 team in the country the last couple of weeks. Michigan probably has more of a say to it. Texas probably has more of a say to it, and Georgia's just still there. And this is a Kentucky team coming in, another team 5-0. Looking good again. They've got an outstanding running back who has, I wanted to get his stats up for Ray Davis, 594 on the season. He's averaging 7.8 yards per carry. He has 8 touchdowns, 120 yards a game. Like he's been killing it on the ground. That's what they want to do is control the ball and beat you that way. And play solid defense.
Would you say 594? So I think that he's like 4th in the country then, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've won every game, win it like pretty handily so far this year. The closest game they've actually had was hosting Eastern Kentucky, week 2, 28-17 win. So that was probably like a very sleepy whatever game, but every other game dominated. And last week playing Florida, I mean, it wasn't close. They handled Florida 33-14. So I don't know. It's between the hedges. So everybody's like, Georgia at home. We'll just default to that. It's at 14.5. But we saw how they looked against South Carolina a couple weeks at home. They started slow. Beck started slow. And this Kentucky team is the best team they've played in the last 3 weeks. And Georgia has looked sleepy the last 3 weeks. And you feel like when these teams look like this, especially teams at the top, they get guys. The same thing we're talking about with Ohio State. Like eventually when you play that inconsistent, the right team's going to catch you. In Kentucky, they always feel like they're primed for an upset because they're so buttoned up that they just will come out there and play sound football. And they might be able to beat Georgia by forcing Georgia to make the mistakes they've been making.
I mean, 100%. And that's like kind of the biggest thing is you're talking about South Carolina a couple weeks ago that was at home.
Yeah.
It's only last week when they were at Auburn and they started super slow again. They were down 10-0. And then they only win that game by 1 score. And it's kind of because of Brock Bowers' heroics. That's kind of the way this team is built right now is Carson Beck has to rely on this superhuman tight end who might just be the best athlete in college football. and then have him just completely go off and take over a game. And obviously, I mean, he can do that, but that's not the winning recipe for like a number one team in the country, especially not if they're going up against tougher talent. Kentucky, I think it surprised people a little bit this year. No Will Levis, who everyone thought was one of the best quarterbacks that Kentucky's ever had. He's gone, and this Leary kid is proven he's good. And like you said, they're running back, fourth in the country in rushing yards. They're controlling the game pretty well, and everyone kind of thought they were going against Florida, headed to the swamp. This is gonna be a loss for them, easy pickup for Florida, and they just proved it, and they've kind of just kept on chugging along.
Yeah,
their 14-point underdog seems pretty dubious. Everyone wants, because Georgia's number one, they want to give them crazy spreads and be like, oh yeah, they'll handle this. But I don't know when the last time Georgia covered the spread, even, honestly.
Yeah, I would hammer that Kentucky. That's a big number, and it's probably going to go down by Saturday. I bet you by Saturday it's 11.5, like something like that, crazy, because people will take that Kentucky action. They're gonna. I would take 2 touchdowns on that. I think Kentucky. I don't think they're going to win, but I think it's 27-24. I think it's right down to the wire, maybe even overtime in this game. But I think Georgia, they're playing with fire, and I think they're still talented enough that they can escape, and this is basically their toughest game they have left on their schedule. So I think that they know that, and they're just like, if we get through this, like it's their biggest test. We have the SEC title game. Like obviously Florida will be a test, but it's not that Florida team's not good. This is the best team they have left, and so they do still have to go to Tennessee though, right? So that's still a tricky matchup, but it's not the same.
No, that game was in Tennessee last year, I think.
Are you sure? I think Georgia's going to Tennessee.
I'm not entirely possible. Yeah, look that up.
At Tennessee, and then November 18th.
Yeah, and then neutral site Florida, world's biggest cocktail party.
Yeah.
So in Jacksonville.
This is like you gotta get through this one. This is the team, especially just with the SEC East in general, like the team they have to worry about to win the division, because Kentucky, if they win this game, like Kentucky's already beaten Florida. They could, if they beat Tennessee, then too, they have all these tiebreakers and everything else. Like, you just gotta go handle business. I think they do, but I think they barely do it.
Yeah, no, and like I said, Georgia is 1-4 against the spread this year, so
not great.
I mean, I would take Kentucky plus 14.5.
All right, let's rip through some of these the rest of the top 25 games here, or top 12,
top 12ish
12-ish games quickly, and we got Florida State hosting Virginia Tech, and I feel like they're 24-point favorites, seeking their first 5-0 start since 2015. I don't know. I just don't trust this Florida State team after the last couple weeks. And that's another thing. Like the cover definitely, but I'm not picking a Virginia Tech upset, but I wouldn't be surprised if at 6:00 Eastern time it's like 20-20 Virginia Tech, Florida State, at Doak Campbell, and it's starting to get dark and it's tense out. Like it just feels like that team is destined for a lot of these games. And you also look at that LSU win at the beginning of the year, which doesn't look as good. Like LSU is not that good.
It doesn't.
They're not a great team. So beating them does not look as good. What we have to look at now is that I don't know, just feels like we might have inflated Florida State, and this is a big test because this is they're big favorites, obviously, but I don't feel good about it. And I mean, it's not like Virginia Tech's been good this year by any stretch of the imagination.
No, very, very, very average. Has a decent defense. If this game was in Virginia Tech, and it was, first of all, if this game's in Virginia Tech, it's probably like a 7:30 kickoff, nighttime for Enter Sandman. I don't know. They'll be scrappy, I guess is the right word for them. It all kind of just depends. I mean, they put up 38 last week against a bad Pitt team, so they can obviously score. Florida State's defense isn't amazing, so I wouldn't be surprised if they can move the ball a little bit. It's kind of just gonna come down if they can steal possessions. If you're talking about an upset, I mean, I definitely think they can cover. That seems excessive for a Florida State team that at times this year has looked very weak.
Yeah.
Especially, I mean, they've dropped. I mean, what, they were third in the rankings a couple weeks ago, and they've slowly dropped because people are talking about that they're not as good as everyone thinks they are.
Yep.
It's kind of a little bit of overreactions, and then they kind of have to, react to them.
Well, that's why you really shouldn't make the polls until after the first month.
Yeah.
Because then you can actually look at the teams, look at the data, use the eye test. Because the whole top 9 right now is basically decided from the preseason polls. And we're going to go through the rest of the teams here too. Penn State is on like 2 byes. They're on a bye this week. Then they play at home to UMass before the Ohio State game on the 21st. So we'll see. We don't really have much to say about them. They had a rough start against Northwestern, got through it. The offense needs to play better against Ohio State, or maybe it doesn't because Ohio State's offense hasn't been that great. And Penn State's
they're another team, very slow. They start very slow, especially in these Big Ten games so far. 3-0 in the Big Ten, but slow starts each one. Right off the bat, that game, I mean, first they had no turnovers going into last week, and then first kickoff, opening kickoff of the game, Singleton fumbles. Northwestern in prime territory already. But I mean, they settled in that second half. They lit it up. It's kind of a thing. It's Drew Aller, his ability to complete passes and kind of even force the ball a little bit. In times, he doesn't seem confident enough to force the ball downfield at all.
Yeah.
And then they're missing a lot of layup passes. That's what's kind of killing him.
He needs to up his risk profile for sure. He needs
a little bit. That's cool. I'm glad they haven't.
It's the receivers though. They don't have elite receivers, and so I feel like they need a guy that he can just go up, and the tight ends too. They don't have a game breaker. I don't know if that's one coming, but it's just the limitations with him. He's not. Yeah, like you're saying, confident enough to elevate them completely yet, and they're not good enough to elevate him in that point where everything's wide open down the field.
Yeah. So you think from what we've seen out of his arm that he has and his strength and the accuracy that he's kind of shown downfield that they'd be willing to take some of those shots, and they just haven't. And if that's the case, that they're saving them for some of these bigger games, try to unleash.
I would imagine that's part of it too. And I think that they've played very safe at Illinois and at Northwestern in those games to just get out of there and
against scrappy
defensive teams.
Great. Yeah.
Washington and Oregon both on bye as they get ready to face each other next week, which will be one of the games of the year potentially. Those are, going to be an incredible matchup there. We'll talk at length about that next week, I'm sure.
I just want to say quick, because it's not going to change because they're on bye. Michael Penix right now has 1,999 yards passing through 5 games. So he's one shy of 400 yards passing a game, which is just insane. He is going to – he's not – what's kind of funny is that he's not even on pace to, get the record that Bailey Zappi set a couple years ago, which is absurd. But he is just – what he's doing at Washington right now is insane. And that high-flying offense – I gotta think that he is the clear Heisman favorite right now.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not clear, but I think he is the favorite.
No, I think he's the favorite.
It's between him and Caleb.
Yeah.
But I think right now he has.
But Washington's. I think that I'm.
Is better. Well, that's the thing.
I think I'm at the point where Washington and Oregon are both going to beat USC.
Yeah.
And this next week feels like the Pac-12 top dog playoff team.
And then they might play each other again, hypothetically, too, because there's no divisions in the Pac-12 anymore.
And then next year in the Big Ten, as we saw today. So,
yeah.
One quick note before we go on to USC. USC plays Arizona. They should just wipe the floor with them. But one quick note before we move on from next week's games. One team we didn't mention in the SEC East conversation, the Missouri Tigers, who if they beat LSU this week, they go to Kentucky next week, and that could be the team that throws the wrench in everything because Missouri right now 5-0 as well, and they've had some close matchups, but they beat a good Kansas State team. They
pulled an upset on a huge field goal.
Yep, they beat a good Memphis team. Memphis's only loss of the year, 34-27 at home. Middle Tennessee game is a weird conundrum, only a 4-point win. Handle Vanderbilt. So if they win this game, and they go to Georgia at the start of November. So another game at home, but that's another one on the schedule for the Bulldogs that Missouri has been looking solid this year too. But anyways, I just wanted to mention that. And then the other big game next week will be big for you and your boy Drake May as North Carolina is hosting Miami in a game that could be potentially 2 ACC playoff teams. They're ranked 17 and 14, but it's only because they haven't won enough games to move up the rankings yet, and this one will help them. Those teams launch each other up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
So
I mean it's like
big games next week.
In my preseason top 25, I had them at North Carolina at 12.
Yeah.
And then the actual AP had them at 21. I thought I was way higher than the beginning of the year than anyone else, and they're working their way up slowly. That's the thing too. Like if Oklahoma loses this week, they'll slide up. If Bama loses this week, they'll slide up. UNC should slide up too. They have movement right now that they can get close to that top 10. I mean, if Notre Dame loses even?
Well, that's good segue because the last game we'll talk about, Notre Dame traveling to Louisville, number 25 in the country, and what should be another fun, interesting matchup. It's a night game on ABC. That Louisville night games are they used to be a blast, especially back in the Big East days, even Lamar. It can get rowdy there. I don't know if Louisville's going to be able to move the ball on Notre Dame. Last week, they scored 13 points at NC State, and we saw what Notre Dame did to NC State.
Yeah, but that was a weird night game at NC State. The Wolfpack was doing weird stuff. It was Bill Cowher night. They were unveiled.
Bill Cowher night? That's crazy.
It was Bill Cowher night. They were unveiling. He is the only Pro Football Hall of Famer from NC State all time.
That's wild.
So that was the thing. There was some weird. It was the blackout game too.
Yep.
So there's some. I mean, there's levels to it.
They only beat Indiana by 7 points.
Yeah.
21-14 win at Indiana.
Well, I mean, you just don't go to Bloomington and expect to win.
That's true. I
don't know why I'm talking myself into Louisville right now.
smoked Bowling Green, Boston College at home, smoked Murray State, and they beat Georgia Tech on that first Friday night game in that crazy 39-34 effort. So I mean, who knows? Here's the thing: is Notre Dame. I don't trust Notre Dame the rest of this season against any like good team. Their offense is not like offense has been great, and then not the last 2 weeks against good competition. Yeah. Like they played two good teams and looked pedestrian. So I don't know, and they could look ahead.
Yeah.
Next week.
I mean, it's USC. Sam Hartman shows though that obviously like he's been around for a long time, and he's played like this thing. He's playing all these ACC teams that he played forever at Wake Forest. So like coming into these environments isn't completely new to him, even if the team he's on is new. Yeah. They lost the big home night game to Ohio State, but then went to Duke last week, college game day, and that was a crazy atmosphere. And he came through and he powered through it. Had an insane 4th down completion run. He can put the team on his back if he needs to. So that's the thing. It's like I don't know how much the atmosphere is going to deter him from figuring out what he needs to do, and then just keep on moving along. That USC is at Notre Dame, right, this year? That's next week.
Next Saturday.
Yeah, USC's at Notre Dame.
So
Saturday. he gets his shot again against it's gonna be a top 10 team most likely.
Definitely. We shall see. It's gonna be a fun week of games this week first, though. We'll start and leading off with Red River, but you're right, next week, Notre Dame USC, huge implications there. And we talked about a couple other games next week. We're in the thick of it now, man. Let's get it.
Yeah. Every game matters.
All right. Have a good one, folks. Enjoy this preview of week, what are we, 6?
6.
Yes. That's crazy.
Week 6.
Have a good one.
Teams are